We've all seen it happen, right? You've got this small, super fast Agile team that's just crushing it. And then the entire organization tries to copy them, and everything just grinds to a halt. So today, we're going to dig into why it's so dang hard to scale Agile. We'll break down the critical factors that really separate success from failure, and we're basing all of this on a huge comparative study.
All right, so let's get right to the heart of it. I mean, if you've ever worked in a big company that's trying to go agile, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It all starts with so much promise, right? All this flexibility and speed on one small team, but then you try to roll it out across the whole company, and it just turns into this complex bureaucratic mess. So what is really going on here?
And this image, wow, it just perfectly captures the problem. The research actually calls it the Agile paradox. See, on one hand, Agile is totally taken over. It's the global standard. Everyone loves it for its customer focus and how flexible it is. But on the other hand, trying to scale it up, it often fails. And I mean spectacularly. You end up with all this heavy-handed governance that feels the exact opposite of Agile. It really makes you wonder, right? Are we even thinking about the problem of scaling the right way?
Well, to even begin to answer that, we've got to get one thing straight. We're not just talking about one single Agile. The study actually breaks it down into two totally different worlds.
Okay, so on one side, you've got what we'll call basic Agile. Think of frameworks like Scrum or Kanban. It's all about empowering individual teams, letting them adapt and move fast. It's really about speed at the team level. But then you have Scaled Agile. Think safe or less. And that has a completely different goal. It's all about aligning lots of teams, using structured governance to make sure the entire organization is pulling in the same direction. See? Two very, very different objectives.
So if their goals are that different, it totally stands to reason that the things that make them succeed or, fail are going to be different too. Let's take a look at what the data from a whopping 44 different studies actually tells us.
Okay, check this out. For Scaled Agile, the data points to something absolutely critical. A massive 85% of the studies said that the number one thing driving success is team competency and deep Agile expertise. The message here is crystal clear. When you're trying to coordinate a whole enterprise, you just can't fake it till you make it. You need real, legitimate, deep-seated knowledge.
And now look at the flip side for basic Agile. The number one barrier cited in 84% of studies is a lack of skills or experience at the team level. So think about that for a second. The very thing that makes large-scale Agile successful is the same thing that most often causes small-scale Agile to crash and burn, having a deep bench of talent and experience. And this pattern gets even more obvious when you put the top success factors side by side like this. For basic Agile, success is all about pumping out software faster. It's very focused on the team's output. But for Scaled Agile, the biggest factors are things that come from the organization itself, like training for top management and serious executive support. The whole focus just shifts completely.
And hey, the exact same pattern holds true for the barriers. Basic Agile fails because of team-level problems. Not enough skills, not enough training. But Scaled Agile fails because of enterprise-level problems. Bad communication, unclear goals, poor priority setting from leadership. So here's the key takeaway, the thing you really need to remember. Basic Agile tends to fail from the inside out, starting with the team. Scaled Agile, though, it fails from the outside in, starting with the organization and its leadership.
And this creates this just devastating domino effect. The research is pretty clear that it often starts with one single root cause: weak executive sponsorship. From there, the dominoes start to fall. That leads directly to not enough training and terrible communication. And the final result? It's a total cascade of failures. Teams can't coordinate, nobody can share knowledge. It's like one little crack in the foundation and the whole house comes tumbling down.
So how do we fix this? Is it hopeless? Well, no. The study proposes a really powerful way to reframe the whole problem. We need to stop thinking about Agile as just a set of processes to follow and start thinking about it as a strategy for managing risk.
And this right here, this is the core insight of the entire analysis. This is the real aha moment. Basic Agile is a fantastic tool for managing uncertainty. Things like, what does the customer really want? Or are these requirements going to change tomorrow? Those iterative feedback loops are perfect for that stuff. But Scaled Agile, that's a tool for managing complexity. These are risks coming from the wider environment and from execution, like trying to coordinate 10 different teams or dealing with external partners. That stuff requires formal structures to keep it from falling apart.
And this brings us to the trade-off. Because let's be real, there's always a trade-off. You just can't have it all.
When you add those layers of governance that Scaled Agile needs to manage enterprise-wide risk, you automatically add a bit of a delay, a kind of coordination tax. And that can slow down the raw speed and autonomy that makes those individual teams so great in the first place. The whole goal isn't to pretend this trade-off doesn't exist, it's to find the right balance for your situation.
Okay, so let's make this practical. What does all this actually mean for you? The research gives us a really simple but powerful rule to live by. You have to diagnose your risks before you prescribe a solution. So here's question number one you need to ask yourself. What is the dominant type of risk your project is facing right now? Is it mostly about uncertainty, or is it mostly about complexity?
Okay, so if your answer is something like, our biggest problem is that the requirements are always changing and we're struggling to stay aligned with our customer. In other words, you're managing uncertainty. Then the solution is to empower your teams with Basic Agile. Don't over-engineer it. Just focus on making those feedback loops stronger and let the team figure things out.
All right, now for the second question. This one is about the bigger picture. Are you mainly being constrained by your overall environment?
So if your main headaches are things like external dependencies, navigating organizational politics, and just trying to coordinate dozens of different teams, in other words, you're managing complexity, then well, you can't really avoid it. The structure and governance of a Scaled Agile framework become necessary. Your focus has to shift to getting that leadership support and building lightweight ways to keep everybody on the same page.
And that brings us to one last really interesting thought to leave you with. The study wraps up by looking toward the future. We've just talked about how scaling adds this necessary bureaucratic tax for coordination, right? But what if? What if generative AI could start to automate a lot of that coordination work? Could AI finally crack the code on scaling and give us the best of both worlds? It's a pretty wild question to think about, and it might just completely change how we all work in the future. Thanks so much for tuning in.